Good afternoon and welcome to our Iona College celebration of commitment to Laudato Si. I'm Brother Kevin Coley. I'm an Edmund Rice Christian brother and executive director of the Thomas Berry Forum at Iona and your host today. We're glad you're here with us for this important program. It links Iona and GreenFaith with a pivotal document for care of Earth in our Catholic Church and the world, Laudato Si, on care for our common home. Reminder to all that this event is being recorded. There's a chat feature which we'll leave open. If you want to ask a question, we'll put the questions up there in the chat. And if we get to them today, that's great. Otherwise, they'll be left in the chat for your perusal later on. What is today's event about? Today, we're joining with GreenFaith fellows and partners around the globe to call attention to the plight of planet Earth and call all people of goodwill to commit to reversing the current devastation of the Earth. Iona is joining this effort with a special commitment arising out of Iona's mission to foster all graduates as ecological citizens. A foundational document for this curriculum is the encyclical of Pope Francis, released in 2015 and now celebrating its 5th anniversary year. Today, we once again join Iona in public commitment to these teachings by way of the leadership of Dr. Seamus Carey, president of Iona, who will speak to us shortly by way of prepared video remarks. Who else is speaking today? Dr. Jim Robinson, a recent graduate of the doctoral program in theology at Fordham University, a member of the Agape Communities Mission Council. Jim received his MTS from Harvard, his BA from Drew. He's sponsored by the Degnan Institute for Earth and Spirit in the current class of GreenFaith Fellows. We welcome Dr. Jim. Sister Kathleen Degnan, who everyone knows is an Irish-American theologian, author, and sacred songwriter who has been engaged in the ministry of contemplative musicianship for over 45 years, the co-founding composer in residence of Schola Ministry. She's also the founder and director of the Kathleen Degnan CND Institute for Earth and Spirit at Iona, where she was professor of religious and environmental studies until 2020. Kathleen is a 2008 GreenFaith Fellow. Dr. Carl Picario Foley is with us. He's director of Iona's Office of Mission and Ministry. Carl's a PhD from Fordham, a Master of Theological Studies from the Catholic Theological Union in Chicago, and received his Bachelor of Arts from St. John's University, Collegeville, Minnesota. Dr. Picario Foley has served on the staff of Iona College's Center for Campus Ministries, now Office of Mission and Ministry, since 1990. I'm going to ask Dr. Robinson to bring us to a prayerful moment now.
Thank you, Brother Kevin. So I'd like to invite everyone present to take a moment to center ourselves, and if you feel comfortable closing your eyes and coming into the present moment. And I'd like to frame this prayer with a quote from Laudato Si. Pope Francis writes, "The universe unfolds in God who fills it completely." The universe unfolds in God who fills it completely. So maybe we can try to feel our way into the intimate presence of God who fills the universe, who fills the rooms that we are in, who fills our bodies. And we're addressing this prayer, which also comes from Laudato Si, a prayer for our earth, to this intimately present God who is with us now, loving us into being. This prayer is called A Prayer for Our Earth. All-powerful God, you are present in the whole universe and in the smallest of your creatures. You embrace with your tenderness all that exists. Pour out upon us the power of your love, that we may protect life and beauty. Fill us with peace that we may live as brothers and sisters, harming no one. O God of the poor, help us to rescue the abandoned and forgotten of this earth, so precious in your eyes. Bring healing to our lives that we may protect the world and not prey on it. that we may sow beauty, not pollution and destruction. Touch the hearts of those who look only for gain at the expense of the poor and the earth. Teach us to discover the worth of each thing, to be filled with awe and contemplation, to recognize that we are profoundly united with every creature as we journey towards your infinite light. We thank you for being with us each day. Encourage us, we pray, in our struggle for justice, love, and peace.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, James.
We'll ask Kathleen now to take a few moments to explain to us what is GreenFaith?
Thank you, Brother Kevin. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us and for witnessing what we at Iona have been about for many decades now, I must say, anticipating the papacy, perhaps the leadership of Francis, anticipating so many of these turns. I have had the privilege of being a faculty member at Iona for over 40 years. And when I came to Iona, there were already courses in environmental studies going on here. So I wish to credit the institution of which I'm gratefully a part for that work, and welcome our dean this morning, Dr. Joseph Stabile, and his associate Marie Pace, who are just so magnanimously and generously supportive of all that we do in the Degnan Institute. I'd like to share something about GreenFaith, because this is GreenFaith's day. This is the initiative of the GreenFaith network, which by now is completely global. It is an astonishing enterprise. And I will bring up, please, their website so I can help you understand and see why we are so grateful, first of all, for GreenFaith, and so really proud to be a part and partner with the GreenFaith Fellowship and Network. Brother Kevin Colley is a fellow of GreenFaith. I am a fellow. James is now in the process of training to become a GreenFaith fellow. This is a 2-year immersive postdoctoral or postgraduate program in religious environmental leadership. And it's undertaken in an utterly and thoroughly interfaith, multi-faith, collaborative faith way, because GreenFaith understands that the religious traditions of this planet are an energy source and force for the protection and healing of our common home, as none other, as no other institution really is. And so for perhaps 2.5 or more decades now, what started out as a very, very tiny little enterprise out of Newark, New Jersey, among a few churches and synagogues, has now gone completely global with their multi-faith climate and environmental movement. This particular season, GreenFaith is really calling forth the many, many, many networks and centers of which they have developed around the planet, of people who have been joining in these GreenFaith circles to do a day of climate action. More about that later. Brother Kevin will talk to us about that. But as we can see from this international network, what started out as a tiny little enterprise in Newark, New Jersey, when I had the honor of being on their board, and kept saying to them, why are we in only Newark, New Jersey? This should be a global phenomenon. And then, of course, it began to be. We have networks throughout the world. Some of our most engaged networks are in India, South Asia, South America, all over the Americas, Africa, building relationships and animating action. So I would just like to say that it is our hope in the Degnan Institute and in the Berry Forum at Iona College that we will annually offer a scholarship for someone to engage this training so that we can keep this network alive. And we at Iona, as an educational institution, can continue to network and interface with communities of faith in our own neighborhoods, but also around the world. And it's very important to say that the movement now coming out of the Catholic Christian community has been a huge energy source for this global project. And we are happy at Iona that we are presenting this facet and feature of the Catholic intellectual tradition, of the Catholic social tradition to our students and aiding their formation in a powerful environmental commitment. So I will let Brother Kevin take us to the next step. Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you, Kathleen. The GreenFaith feature of our day today is part of the story. Maybe Kathleen, we could take down the GreenFaith website for now.
Sorry.
There you go. And so I'll say a few words about the GreenFaith project. This is their language from their own press release this morning. And they're very clear that this is an urgent moment. They talk about it that way. They say that with pointed urgency, faiths are rising for climate justice. It's grassroots. It's also high-level faith leaders. And they've issued 10 demands. And the most potent language here is they're condemning the inadequate progress by governments and financial institutions. 400 grassroots religious actions in 43 countries right now. This is one of them at Iona. Thousands of people of faith. We're calling on political and financial leaders to meet a series of ambitious climate demands at COP26. Now, COP26, COP26, perhaps you're not familiar with it. This is UN language. United Nations Conference of the Parties, COP. You may recall in the headlines some years ago, COP21, Conference of the Parties 21, the 21st iteration of that event. It took place in Paris, and it was at that point that the nations of the world agreed on a goal to reduce the amount of carbon in the atmosphere in order to prevent a rise in the global temperature. The barrier that they set up was 1.5 degrees Celsius. That was an important marker for the planet. It was an important marker in particular for the small island developing states, small island nations, all of whom were there in Paris and were enraged basically when the Paris Agreement looked like it was going to land on 2 degrees warming as the goal. And the small countries rose up and basically said, we cannot sign a 2-degree document. It is a death sentence. and they got the attention of the rest of the world, and that's how we ended up with the 1.5 degrees goal for the Paris Agreement. The GreenFaith people are saying to us, that's not good enough. And I'll take you over now to a little bit of a slide that I think will help us to see what we're talking about here. Can we see that slide? Okay. So we have a sense now of what we're talking about. It's a thermostat, thermometer. This is the IPCC policy warnings. This is Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. After Paris, this set of numbers was presented to the world as, here's what's happening. Now you'll notice in the frame there in green, those are the goals for the Paris Agreement. You see the 1.5 Celsius, 2.8 Fahrenheit. And then they all agreed about this. They all went home to their countries and they said, here's our plan. And they wrote and basically did their homework. And when their homework came back and everybody handed in their homework, that's the blue line. Now notice what happened. Even if everybody did what they promised, we're going to hit 3.3 degrees Celsius. So even that almost immediately was seen as inadequate. And if we don't do anything, that's the yellow line, we'll end up with a 4.2 degree increase in global average temperature, 4.2 Celsius. These are stark numbers because already now, it's 5 years out, we know that the national proposals are not going to be sufficient. They weren't sufficient then. So people were told, countries were told, go back, redo your nationally determined contributions, they call them NDCs, and get that 3.3 number down. We can't accept this. So as a result, we're now faced with what the GreenFaith people have come to call the 10 demands, because they're concerned that we're not really going to get this done if we're going to be allowed to be, as we say, that careless about it. So a quick run through of their demands: 100% renewable energy for all. Number 2, finance aligned with compassionate values. Number 3, jobs and healthcare for all. Number 4, respect for indigenous rights. Number 5, welcome for climate migrants. Number 6, net zero emissions by 2030. Net zero emissions by 2030. That's a powerful statement, and it's also a very, very big challenge. Number 7, end to the planet's desecration, echoing the words of Pope Francis in Laudato. Number 8, elimination of immoral finance, a good challenge for banks that continue to lend to fossil fuel exploration and development. Number 9, just contributions from wealthy countries. And number 10, bold faith community leadership. That's us again. Now, I thought there was an interesting moment when GreenFaith decided to call these 10 demands. That's a powerful word from a faith group. It's not 10 suggestions. It's not 10 wishes. It's not 10 hopes. It's very clearly 10 demands. And that's part of why the global action today is so important, because we are now in that moment for global action. The COP26 that's going to take place in Glasgow, they had preliminary results of their countries submitting revised national determined contributions. That was all collected and looked at on the 26th of February when the report came out, and it was enormously disappointing. And the Secretary General for the UN, Guterres, labeled it such. He called it a major disappointment and a very frightening moment to realize that even though the countries were told, go back, rewrite your contributions, come back with more ambition, they still failed to measure up. So we're in a very, very bad moment here. And we're hoping that with this kind of effort, we can get the world's attention. For Iona, we're actually in a somewhat of a better position because we have enlightened leadership that's helping us with this. And we're going to take a look now at brief remarks from President Carey, who we contacted last week and invited to participate with the Laudato letter, which was signed by President Nair 5 years ago as a commitment of the institution. So President Carey has agreed to say a few words about this. I'll say something about President Carey. He's the president of Iona College. He's an American philosopher and academic. He's now the 9th president of Iona. He began his term at Iona in July of 2019. Prior to his appointment at Iona, he served as the 26th president of Transylvania University, the first university in the state of Kentucky. He was president there from 2014 to 2019. He's published 3 books, which have focused on the intersection of philosophy, parenting, and family life, and is a contributor to Huffington Post. Dr. Carey has led Iona through the grave dangers of the COVID pandemic with grace and vision. He has also managed to persevere and even strengthen Iona in this interval, overseeing the purchase recently of the campus of a neighbor institution forced to close due to the impact of the virus. And we thank him for his words today and his deep commitment to the values of Laudato Si. Now I'm going to share the screen again. And here's our president. Can we all see that? I hope so.
Yep.
Thank you for the opportunity to participate in today's activities by way of affirming Iona's commitment. Thank you for the opportunity to participate in today's activities by way of affirming Iona's commitment to embodying the insights and working towards the goals expressed in Pope Francis's encyclical, Laudato Si, Caring for Our Common Home. Marking the 5th year anniversary of its publication is a reminder of our place in the world and our relationship to the earth. Reminders are important given our tendency to so often forget what is most important. There's little more important than our relationship with the earth. How we think about that relationship will determine the fate of the earth and all of its inhabitants in the coming years. And while we've developed powerful tools to affect much of our experience, we know that those tools by themselves will not lead to the changes we need to restore health to the earth and to ourselves. As Pope Francis points out, it is easy to become enthralled with the powers of technology and the allure of material wealth and comfort. Yet he also reminds us that our actions are recorded in nature. Our attempts to control are not the last word. Nature always has a response. And her response is telling us that our ways of thinking, forgetfulness, and our self-centeredness are suffocating her. We need more than new technology. We need a change of heart. We need to cultivate the powers of perception to see Mother Earth's complexity, her beauty, and her suffering. And yet, in the midst of so much pain, suffering, and destruction, there is always hope. That hope, reserved in Mother Nature's power, is accentuated by our Easter journey, culminating in the resurrection. Hope endures in our world and in our stories. Hope endures in our freedom to choose a new path. Hope endures in the resilience of those who suffer. On the 5th anniversary of Pope Francis's encyclical, let us work together to bring hope alive by recommitting ourselves to finding our proper place in the natural order, to restoring health to Mother Earth and to ourselves. I want to thank Sister Dignan and all those working with her for justice and a reorienting of our place in the natural world. Thank you for doing this work. Have a great day.
I think we can see how fortunate Iona College is, watching Dr. Carey model grace and vision. And we're grateful to him for giving us that time. He has enormous responsibilities, as you might imagine, and it was a wonderful thing for him to be able to do that for us. I'm going now to ask us to move to the second part of our day here. And in a sense, we're calling this the response. We're going to hear from Jim Robinson. We'll hear from Carl Picario Foley. And there may be some time for questions toward the end of our interval here. But for now, I'm going to ask Jim Robinson to talk to us a little bit about the Laudato Si letter of commitment.
Thank you, Brother Kevin. Well, we want to thank President Carey for promoting and empowering the Iona community's efforts to embody the ideals of Laudato Si. The commitment to move our relationship to the earth in the direction of justice and sustainability is woven into the fabric of Iona's curriculum and culture, and this is certainly a cause for hope. Today, on this GreenFaith Global Day of Action, we have the opportunity to reflect on and to renew the college's many efforts to actively live Laudato Si. So I'd like to briefly highlight the Laudato Si commitment letter, a statement of leaders in Catholic higher education, as one aspect of Iona's commitment to living Laudato Si. This commitment letter was originally organized by the Ignatian Solidarity Network soon after the publication of Pope Francis's encyclical in 2015. And the numerous colleges and universities who have endorsed the letter, including Iona, commit to the following, and I quote, to work together regionally and globally to study, promote, and act on the ideals and vision of integral ecology laid out by Pope Francis, end quote. Throughout his encyclical, Pope Francis conveys the importance of developing an integral ecology, an environmentalism that emerges from a deep sensitivity to the intertwining of ecological degradation with social injustice. Pope Francis calls on his readers to hear the cry of the earth and the cry of the poor, the cries of the natural world and the most vulnerable members of our own species, those who are impacted first and worst by climate catastrophe. As President Carey puts it in his video, quote, we need to cultivate the powers of perception, end quote, in order to more deeply sense the earth's complexity, beauty, and suffering. Today, we renew our collective commitment to more deeply perceive our planet and to clarify the nature of our roles within it as sensitive and responsible members of a vast community of life. We renew and deepen our attunement to the beauty of creation, as well as our awareness of the depths of its devastation and destruction. As the seventh GreenFaith demand states, we must work to, quote, end the planet's desecration, end quote. Today, we recommit ourselves to the ongoing project of cultivating our capacity for perception and action, seeing and being, sensing and responding to our beautifully diverse and deeply wounded world. In classrooms and Zoom rooms, on campus and in the community, in our houses of worship and our homes, we commit to living Laudato Si, embodying integral ecology by enacting the ideals of sustainability and justice. The Laudato Si commitment letter emphasizes that Pope Francis offers an, quote, urgent call to action to address the climate and justice crises threatening the planet, end quote. The call to address the intersection of environmental degradation and social injustice, the call to promote an integral ecology is indeed urgent. And we sense this appropriate and necessary tone of urgency, as Brother Kevin pointed out, in the 10 demands that GreenFaith calls us to reflect on and embody. As this urgency animates Iona's work to promote a culture of justice and sustainability, we can continue to draw from the deep well of hope that President Carey points to in his reflection. The good news that moves us into the future is that there are just and sustainable alternatives to the eco-social crisis, and the Iona community has a significant role to play in promoting these alternatives. Our hope can only deepen and expand when we reflect on the ways in which Iona has been and will continue to be a leading force in the work of building a more just and sustainable future. Thanks, and I'd like to now pass it over to Carl Picario-Foley.
Well, good to be with everyone today. It is an absolutely gorgeous day here in New Rochelle, and the earth is crying out for us to be outside, I think. And certainly when we talk about GreenFaith's urgency, seeing the beauty of this day just makes us want to act, I think, right? And so I want to just give a glimpse, right, of some of the things happening in Catholic higher ed as we honor this 5th anniversary of Laudato Si. And so I think Brother Kevin can put some slides up here that speak to that. And great. So if you proceed with the next one here. So Catholic higher ed has been at this, and certainly a seminal moment was a gathering that happened a year now going on almost 2 years. The Creighton University Laudato Si in the U.S. Catholic Church Conference, and Iona was represented by Brother Kevin Cawley. He's presented on this conference. There were some, I want to say 150 participants in this conference in the thereabouts, with wide representation. I have to say our brothers and sisters from our Jesuit institutions are taking a certain lead on this in this conversation. And so if we proceed to that next slide and see some of the things that as we talk about today, as we talk about one of the GreenFaith's 10 demands being zero emissions by 2030, we know that institutions like University of San Francisco have reached their goal of carbon neutrality. They have expanded significantly. Their solar energy has been a significant part of their capacity to reach this goal. But 190 Catholic institutions globally, really led by religious sisters communities, we should say, and I know we have several religious sisters on this call. So once again, religious sisters leading the way, committed to divestment from fossil fuels. Again, one of the demands of GreenFaith, of its 10 demands of immoral finance. And certainly Dayton and Seattle and Georgetown are among these institutions engaged in divestment. When we speak about 190 Catholic institutions globally, I think we're talking about more, close to 2/3 being outside of the United States, of these institutions. So just to say a word on the next slide about some of the things happening currently to honor this 5-year anniversary. So the International Association of Jesuit Universities, chaired by Dr. Michael Shook, have undertaken this project to identify what's being done in Catholic higher education, and to provide models and templates of what Catholic institutions might aspire to. And so there are some 42 faculty and staff on 11 different subcommittees that Dr. Shook is organizing. Of the 35 institutions represented, half are in the United States and the other half are in Europe, Asia, and Central South America. Through an invitation from ACCU, I serve on the Cry of the Poor team that has just begun its works. But some of the other teams, Cry of Earth, Ecological Economics, Simple Lifestyles, Ecological Education, Eco-Spirituality, Community Connection, University Planner, looking at the Laudato goals and the Sustainable Development Goals. And you can see from the next 2 slides, you can see one of the things that this project is undertaking is developing this grid of, what's a Laudato Si apprentice university, what is a journeying university, and what is a leader university. And there are numerous categories. We see certainly energy use, and with apprentice university being LED lights and in all fixture and replacing conventional appliances, but a leader university reducing the need for energy and water through passive solar construction and site-specific construction and remodeling. The consumption of water, where the apprentice institution evaluating water leaks and installing water-saving devices to the leader university, capturing rainwater for public use, working to ensure access to publicly distributed water for local neighborhoods. And again, see the work on biodiversity. As I was looking at this grid, I can see Iona in all different categories in many ways, as apprentice, journeying, and leader. We know there's great work still yet to be done. Lots of work. If you look at the next slide, we'll see some of the other categories like local food, from the apprentice institution, from organizing farmer markets to the leader institution, making use of campus grounds for growing food, beauty and aesthetics, interdependence on the earth in a variety of ways, subsistence lifestyles, encouraging courses and curricular activities that promote handwork, gardening, home repair. That's certainly Iona. And the leader institution partnering with community organizations to promote subsistence activities within the community and for students. And I know Christina Andrick has been a leader on many of these initiatives. Green spaces, maintaining management of green areas to the leader institution, making green nudges, providing green spaces with benches, green lawns that encourage students and visitors to socialize. So this is just by way of glimpse at Catholic higher education, what is being proposed as a response, a 5-year response to Laudato Si. And I think it's worthy of our discussion and attention, and it's something that I hope that we'll continue to pursue as the work of the Committee on Sustainability and et cetera. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Carl. A wonderfully comprehensive look at what's possible. And we're at 12:43, so we have about 10 minutes of time here for exchange, questions or comments. And I'm wondering, about asking basically the Iona folks there, did you see something in Carl's presentation there about Iona, where we might find ourselves? Maybe Carl, you could touch back on it, where you might situate Iona. As you said, we're kind of all over the place, but can you see some places that we've really made progress in?
Well, I think we've made great strides curricularly, right? And we're certainly, the reemergence of the environmental studies major is certainly a great thing. The Earth, Columba Cornerstone, certainly a wonderful thing. I think we have bits and pieces of a lot of different things. We're looking into. We have an active committee looking into solar energy, so I know it's on the list of things, so it's important for us to kind of keep at it and keep it in the center. I don't know.
Yeah. Thank you for the help on it, because I think we're going to have another report from you before long on what's happening with that project. I wondered, does Sister Kathleen have a thought or two with respect to the campus and how we're doing?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Carl. That's really, I'm so grateful that we're engaged at that level of national academic networking. I want to leave this open so that the dean or our faculty, Christina, can speak to things. Marie, who has such a sense of the global nature of our college and what we're up to. I think Iona's done a marvelous job on the academic scale. I think that these innovations of these thematic courses, theme-based courses, become really formative for the beginning students as we induct them into an Iona education and an Iona values formation, to be honest. So that's really important. We need to keep that up. My feeling is that I would like to go to the place where I feel perhaps we need to develop, and that is among faculty and staff, of offering them. I mean, we're 12 people on this call today. It's an awful time of the year. People are so busy. But I still think that what we did here today as our contribution to a global effort was really important. We rededicated ourselves to an enormous commitment. If folks read that letter, and I think that maybe we could post the letter to everyone if you don't have it. The letter that our president signed again is so comprehensive. It talks about all of the facets and features of an Iona commitment to be an academic leader, a global academic leader from a faith-based position, in terms of this urgent necessity to educate for care of the earth and for the transformation of lifestyle and for the transformation of all sorts of commitments. So I feel that I want to give Iona a big shout out. I want to give it an endorsement for all that it has been about. And we've already established pathways. We have to keep walking, of course. We have to keep going further, and we will. But I feel that that's been, because of our leadership, that's been a remarkable thing. Yeah. And our faculty, by the way. Our faculty have been very enlightened and committed. I'd love to hear from our dean and what he thinks in terms of this bigger national and global recommitment for the next 5 years. We are 5 years into Laudato. Now the whole enterprise takes us to the next stage, and how we might imagine going forward.
Good afternoon, everybody. Well, she's got that time. How are you, sister?
Fine, thank you. Better.
So, going forward, again, I think for us as a college, I think a lot of the things that Carl spoke about are really important of us in terms of us being local leaders in our care for our common home and doing things that are visible and substantive in terms of reducing our stress on the environment. And I think that as we have plans to, have a new campus now and to expand, that those expansions must have all green technologies and green thinking as part of the design. It can't just be technologies. I think if you just rely strictly on technologies, that's going to be a problem. It has to really be a cultural part of the culture of the institution, part of the culture of the people of the institution. So I think that's really critical. And I think, again, the GreenFaith movement is so important because it's not just one faith, right? You're looking at it being all faiths across the globe, and we've seen it grow. But what has to happen is that it has to go into the political realm. That, as we see now, unless we have the governments and the politicians on board, it's not going to change, or it's going to change too slow to make an impact.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think those are the things that the universities have to really be very much involved and pressure and apply pressure to the institutions that be to make those changes. So I think that's important. I'm concerned that, some of these things are not going to happen fast enough. I think we have made progress, but as brothers showed you, the change has been slow or not strong enough to have an impact. So those are my concerns.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that, again, that's where our involvement is in terms of not just from the curricular space, but it's got to branch out from there.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if that.
Yes.
Thanks, Joe. Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Sabio.
Like
Christina?
Yeah, that's exactly what I want to hear from Christina. Nope.
Dr. Andrew.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much for organizing this event. I'm happy to be able to participate. Definitely want to echo what everyone's saying about curricular activities. I think that we've made improvements in there, and we've done a lot, and students just coming in are really getting introduced to the earth and kind of that Iona way of thinking and connecting to the earth. So I love that. So I just want to talk about, students in my classes and how they're, connecting with, our earth and thinking about it. And so we are doing, even now with a lot of the students virtual, I'm truly trying to get students connected to, our community and making Iona a leader in our community. So even if students are at home, wherever they're at, they are engaging with the natural world, going outside for labs, even though we're all, we're all connecting from different places, and some students on campus, some at home, they're going outside, they're observing biodiversity, they're thinking about, their earth, their environment around them, and connecting that to sociological factors. And so I'm really trying to get people to, be present in the environment that they live in and think about their role in it and our institution's role in it. Some specific things, thinking about the table that Carl presented. We have been trying to reduce waste on campus by promoting upcycling and really thinking about waste reduction in relationship to entrepreneurship. So I've worked with faculty on that, and we're working on expanding those programs, trying to students have a lot of stuff that they might not need, and somebody else might need them, and trying to connect people in that way to reduce waste and upcycle and recycle. We also have the garden on campus that took a break last year when everybody had to leave campus, but I think we'll be up and running again this spring into summer, where we're growing local organic food, and we're going to try to make that food available to the campus community. So yeah, I think that's the main areas I wanted to highlight. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Christina.
Beth, I think you should tell them about Sister Flax. They could grow it there.
Thank you, Dorothy. Perhaps. Is it okay if I say a word about some of what's
Please.
happening in Ohio?
Can
Hey,
you
hi, Beth.
introduce yourself, please?
Say hello, Beth, and tell us who you are, so
Will
people
do.
know. Yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Dr. Beth Blissman. I have the great pleasure of working with and being mentored by Kevin as a United Nations representative. I represent the Loretto community, which is based in Kentucky, and my home base is in Cleveland. So it's been kind of strange this past year to be representing a group that's based in Kentucky, although I'm usually in New York, but now I'm doing it all from my dining room. But some of what is happening here in Ohio is we are working with many of the things you mentioned. One innovation you might want to, well, there are a few at Oberlin College where I used to work, totally off the grid building. I'd invite you all out to tour it anytime you would like. Solar panels, but the best thing I think Oberlin does is what's called the community dashboard. It is a real-time dashboard, basically think TV sets on the walls of local schools, local coffee shops, our local community service agency, which gives real-time data about water usage and electricity usage throughout the entire town. And that's, people are able to see the peaks and valleys. The elementary schools can kind of have little competitions with each other. And it's a great way to help kids grow up learning that what they consume really does matter. We are not in an infinite planet. There are limits, and as we make the worldview shift of learning to live within those limits, starting from a very young age, I think makes just a great deal of sense. And thank you, Dorothy, for referring to Sister Flax. I just gave a reflection at a meeting yesterday where many of us are working on decolonizing ourselves from our minds out. And there's the Cleveland Flax Project, which I'm getting involved with this year because we have plenty of sheep and we have plenty of alpaca in Ohio. So we have plenty of fibers for winter wear, which we definitely need. But in terms of clothing and clothing ourselves through warm, humid summers, flax, which of course is woven into linen, is there's a whole group of very enthusiastic young women, mainly in Northeast Ohio, who are thinking that flax could replace steel, is what this part of the country is known for. So in terms of how we rethink everything, right, as Thomas Berry has called us, to rethink all the institutions, to recommit ourselves, be reborn in so many senses to new ways of life, new ways of living. How do we look at every single thing we work with and make good use of all of the possibilities offered by our higher ed institutions? I'm so excited to hear that you all bought, was it the Ursuline College that you all just purchased?
Concordia.
Oh, Concordia. Oh, fabulous. I'm so grateful that that will now be part of Iona. So congratulations on that. And just by way of background, I directed the Community Engagement Center at Oberlin for a decade and a half. So if I could ever be of assistance in doing any brainstorming or linking or thinking, both Kevin and Kathleen know how to find me. And
Absolutely.
Dorothy too, probably.
And thank you for finding us today. Good to hear from you, Beth. Thanks very much for the interventions there. I'm also prompted to remark, listening about the dashboard idea. I would bet that the Heinz Institute on campus would have some interesting ideas about how to make something like that go forward. That's part of what they've been doing on campus. I think there might be a way to open that conversation. And I know that we can talk about that once we're offline. Who else would like to add a comment today? Jackie.
I wasn't sure how I got into this meeting. I mean, I answered your invitation, Kevin, and I thought, what am I doing here? But anyway, I'm glad to be here, and I don't quite mean that. But
Jackie,
and I'm
tell us who you are, please.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. The rest of
Jackie
us-
Hanrahan. I'm in the same congregation as Kathleen, and I'm working with coordinating the justice work for our province in the United States. And I have a background in a number of things, and I've worked for a long time down in Appalachia, so I have a lot of connections down there. But I'm also thinking, we just yesterday decided on who was going to be involved in our general chapter, which is going to be in July and August of this summer for our congregation, involving 8 countries, et cetera. And it's just such an urgent time. And I think, as Kathleen has been so involved in so many facets of things. I remember when you first were involved in GreenFaith, and many of you. So, I mean, it is the life work and the only work, the great work, and the urgency factor. I want to get back to that. If it's not something that we can really root or encourage or whatever within 5 to 7 years, to me, that's a criteria point that says I'm not doing it. You know, so I think looking to the margins, looking to the centers that are we collaborate with, all those things, I think are going to be signposts for us. You're already well involved, but and I bring up the article that we talked about last week with Joe Holland of the Transition University, or transformative, perhaps transfigurative now. So just the urgency factor I want to say again, but also I'm renewed to and inspired by just this conversation today to really get us as a congregation to be committed to be a green faith congregation, or whatever that looks like internationally. It's just given me the agenda I want to take to the chapter, and I won't be the only one, but it would, and because we are connected in various ways to Iona too, it would, it may offer many opportunities, but so thank you for the inspiration.
Thank you, Jackie. Excellent. We're at the end of our hour. I want to thank everybody for being with us and supporting us. And I'm glad you got to see, there's Dorothy. Hello, Dorothy. You got to see President Carey and hear him. I think that's a good takeaway for anybody who wasn't sure where was Iona on these questions. It's very clear. If it's okay, Kathleen, I can invite you to bring us to close.
Kathleen, may I just, 1 second, I just would like to say, this is wonderful, and it is so inspiring. My roots are kind of in East Harlem, and I would hope that there's some way that the universities or higher education can connect with immigrant communities who are so connected to the earth. And I'm sure you've thought of that, but I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dorothy. We have begun those connections. We've had some projects and programs during the semester with leaders from Harlem and other parts of the inner city. And also we have just begun a conversation toward collaboration with a new project called the Thomas Berry Place in Queens, which is going to be serving particularly young men, but young men and women who are vulnerable and marginal and developing biodynamic farm that they can work in, and also cultivate them in the food preparation industries. So there are lots of things that we hope to be able to do. So let me try to bring our wonderful conversation to just to bring it back to that center that James started from, that deep place, that deep place of commitment and intention, that place that funds us, that is the resource and the energy for taking on this great work. We are most privileged and blessed to be alive in this most critical and urgent and dark time. It is no accident that we find ourselves to be the people of now, to be the leaders of now. And I will be speaking with my dean and Marie Pace, and with my very forum colleagues to invite us to think of a kind of summit at Iona for faculty, administration, students, staff, a real green think tank as we go forward, so we can garner the creative insight that the living one, our mother, this glorious, glorious planet, the way that the living one is incarnating itself among us and for us. May we be her servants and good companions to each other. Amen.
Thank you, Kathleen.
Amen.
Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everybody.
All right. Have a blessed day.
Yes, you too. Thank
Get out there and get that sunshine. God bless.
Bye. Thank you, James.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you. That was great.
Thank you, Kevin Patrick.
Well done.
I really am serious about that forum. I think we need a summit for imagining how Iona can go forward.
All right.
We can initiate it, but everybody else has got to jump on.
Well, good. We got a good start. And this recording now, I'm going to have to end, so we're not recording too much of our.
I'll end our recording now. Thank
Yeah.
you, everyone.